Hi everyone, Jeri Bellini here. Welcome to the tiny house. Remember, we're at the beach where there's a lot of noise. And I have all the windows closed, but there's this big piece of equipment going up and down the road. So I'm sorry about that. Being at the beach, I will tell you two things you're going to find here. You're going to hear a lot of birds when the windows are open. And that's a nice thing, but you're going to hear a lot of trucks and people and just noise in general, and you're going to see me looking like a slob, so get used to that too. Yeah, people just kind of come out of their house in their pajamas around here, and it's okay. So there you have that. That was a full disclaimer. So today's video, I thought I would share, since this weekend is Mother's Day, I thought I would share some information about my mom's quilt and how it came to be and how it's working, working out, because it's a work in progress. So I wanted to start at the beginning and explain to you how I started this. So when my mother passed away, I kept her clothing. She didn't have a whole lot of stuff, so it was easy to just put everything in a bag. She mostly wore t-shirts, and they are not the typical t-shirts that have graphics on them. They're just regular. Here's one right here. They were just regular polo shirts. So I could use this. Now that I'm looking at it, I probably will cut that off and stick that on the quilt. But it made me have to be a little more creative about how I was going to go about this. Not to mention, it's t-shirt material. It's not what we're used to sewing quilts with, which is 100% like quilter's cotton or something like, substantial. These are stretchy. So that's a challenge in and of itself. I didn't do anything with the clothing for a few years because I kept thinking, what should I do? How can I do this? And I started following Jude Hill, which you've heard me talk about before. She's very innovative and courageous. I think she tries anything. It's just amazing. I love her stuff. So I was following her for a couple of years, and I started to feel like I could do anything. And I messaged her and I said, Jude, I have these t-shirt that I want to do something with, and here's my idea. And she encouraged me to just try stuff. So that's what I did. So I started by preparing background. I'm giving you the condensed version of all this. There was a lot to it, and this has been going on for years. My mother's gone 9.5 years now. And I think I started working on this about 4 years, three or 4 years ago. But anyway, what I decided to do was create a background to work on, because I felt, what am I going to do? Like cut out squares and sew them together like a regular quilt? I thought it would be stretchy as all get out, and I did not want to use iron-on interfacing. That stuff is hard to sew through, and I just didn't want to. I wanted it to be soft and organic, and it's just what I had in my mind. So I started by making background squares. So this is one that I haven't done anything to it yet. But that's what I did. I just spent a lot of time cutting up some of my quilter's cotton. And there's just other stuff in here too. There's some feed sack fabric and just all kinds of cloth that's cotton feeling. And I started cutting these pieces up in certain sizes so that I could have a somewhat uniform thing going on. Now, when I very first started, I wasn't really thinking about size. I was just thinking, how do I get started with this t-shirt stuff? So my blocks are not all the same size. and they are by no means uniform because they are all made differently. So this one, for example, has one of mom's shirts, and she actually painted these two little girls, and she painted it on a piece of watercolor paper and then had the print put on a t-shirt. Now, she was a twin, so this is her and her sister in there. But so I was able to do this like a typical t-shirt quilt, although I did not use interfacing. Okay. So since all the blocks are so different, it is a little hard for me to be seriously uniform. So I am not worrying about that. I am going to address it when I go to put all the blocks together. And I already have in my mind how I'm going to do that. And I'll share that with you when I get to that point. I thought maybe this summer I would start to put some of it together, but I do want to wait until I have most of the blocks done so that I can lay them out in a pleasing manner. This has been a process I've been doing for so many years that they're so different, and I don't want to put like all of one color or one thing in one spot. So I'm going to probably wait a little bit until I have more blocks to put them together. So, sidebar. So what I was trying to do is combine my quilting cotton with her t-shirts. So it's both of us are in the quilt. And it will kill two birds with one stone. It will give me some stability in the quilt by using the quilter's cottons, and it will give me my mother's t-shirts. So this is my favorite block out of all of them, because that's an impression of my mother. And I just love this one. So I made the block, excuse me. I made the block, and the centerpiece, which you can't see because it's behind the blue, is just plain like a cotton sheet. So let me see if I can. And then what I did is I stitched, I don't even see anything else, anything like this one. So I'll just hold this back up again. So what I did is I made the block, and then I stitched this. You could see the stitching around the outside edge. Then I stitched it on, and then I created the face and whatever right on top of it. So what I normally, if you're interested in doing something like this, what I would suggest you do, if you have problem fabric. If you don't have problem fabric, then you can do, other things. But if all you had was t-shirts and they have no graphics on them, then you're in the boat with me. And you might want to try something like this. So the first thing I did was create the background, the blocks. And I used certain sizes. So I used 1-inch squares, 2-inch, 3-inch, and 4-inch, and 6 inches. All of those, when you put a combination of them together, you can get a 12-inch block. So that's what I would suggest you aim for, and for consistency, and then they'll go together easier. So I didn't want to quilt the whole thing when I was finished. That was another thing. So I quilt as I go along. So this is done. See, it's quilted. And because I do it that way, I had to think ahead. So I put the block, and let's just call this a lining. And instead of using quilt bat, I'm using just a cotton sheet. And then this is the backing. And the backing was my mom's pants, her jeans. And it's not regular jeans, blue jeans. They're the kind, if you've ever seen them like in the thrift store, they have an elastic band on top. And they're very thin. So think like sashiko. So you could do sashiko stitching with that. So it's 3 layers. the block, the middle, the batting, the lining, and then the backing. And then, of course, the decorations on the top, which in my case is the t-shirt material. So let me show you, let me show you another one. So you can't see the lining on this one, but there is a lining back there. So I make the block, and they're all so different. Like if you look at this one, it's just all patches. It's like a collage underneath the hearts. It's just like a collage. So I sat and I made those. The very first thing I did was cut out a bunch of these squares in various sizes. So I cut some out in, like I said, 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch, 4 inch, and 6 inch. And then I started putting them together into the blocks. So here's a block. Here's another one, it's small. They're all different shapes and sizes. And as I was going along, I would address, when I decided to do something, like if I had an idea, then I would make it into a bigger block and do it. Or I would think to myself, I'll make a couple of these smaller ones and then put them together. I know it sounds very complicated, and I know I sound a little like all over the place, but I have to be honest with you, I have been a little all over the place while I was making this, because I was learning as I was going along. So things kept changing. And ultimately, I'm giving you like the end of the story first. So if you want to start something like this, you can. So here's another one that you can see, and this, because this is a work in progress. So I would make the block, then I would baste it to a piece of sheet, very thin sheet. So I'm not going to ever put batting in this thing. So you can see that's basted on there. And then let's just say this was all finished and I was ready to do the quilting, because now I would do the quilting last. I would take a piece of jeans material, which I don't have handy, and I would lay this on top of the jeans material and I would baste it. So I would baste all of it together, and then I would do the quilting. But you can see I'm not finished with this one. So say I wanted to put a sun up here, and maybe I wanted to put some birds. I would use Mom's t-shirts and do that. And I would do it right as is. And once I've gotten the whole thing the way I like it, then I would lay it down onto the jeans material, and then I would quilt it. And if that makes sense. So now you see there are some stitches in there. Think of those stitches as being the applique stitches. In normal applique, you would not see them because you would be turning under the edge. With t-shirt fabric, you don't have to turn under the edge. All right, so here, let's look at another one. This one hasn't gotten stitched yet. So these are the necklines, and I'm trying to use all the pieces of the shirt, as many as I can. I know I'm not going to use the whole shirt and use all of it, but to me the neck and the placket was very important, because the neck was around her neck and the placket was near her heart on the front of her shirt. So these were very important to me, and I thought I'll just stitch them down. So I'll just stitch them down, and then, but before I do, I'll put a back on there. I'll put a piece of cotton sheet, which I don't have here to show you, but just a very thin piece of cotton sheet. I'll baste it on. I'll stitch these on, and then I'll be ready to quilt all this area here. Then I'll put it on the jeans and quilt it. I hope that made sense. So I wanted to show you a few of the options of backgrounds. So this was another background. And when I was making these pieces, I wasn't sure how big I wanted to make the quilt. So I have some small pieces, I have some big pieces. So I can actually, stitch these together to create a 12-inch piece. So here's another one, and these are 4-inch blocks. Here's another way I did it, because I thought, you know, I could put something fun in the middle. And I just kind of experimented. Here's another one. It's all the same cloth. And I just kind of I gridded it off. And this one's really weird, but I don't know. I don't even remember why I did this. But it's just a piece of the cotton sheet, and then I started putting some background on there. I don't know where I'll go with this. Maybe I'll put another piece of background, some more background, and just leave it patchy. So it's not a traditional quilt, and it's not a contemporary quilt. It is what it is. It's a love quilt is what it is. So here's another one where I just sewed 3 strips together. Everything on this quilt is hand stitched. Everything from putting the blocks together. Here's another little thing. Maybe I'll put this on that. Maybe I'll put this on there too. There's no rules here. You know me. Just play, no rules. So basically, this is ready to be put together with the other blocks. If I had a whole bunch of blocks that were at this particular stage, I could put them together. And you're probably wondering how I'm going to put them together. And I'm not going to talk about that right now, but I have laid it out with an idea in mind and kind of put them together. And when I get to that point again, I will show you. But I was thinking maybe we could, like I think this one, maybe I could just sit and show you how to put this one together. Because this one is done on a backing. So maybe, you know, I can turn the camera around and we can make a block like this. Maybe I'll take some pictures, I'll lay them out, and I'll take some pictures of some of the blocks because holding them up, it's just not the same. And I did stitch them with 2 different color threads. I stitched some with white thread and some with black thread. And here's with black thread. You can see the black. I love the primitive look of the black thread. Let's turn the camera around and do a little bit of that. And I just thought that this would be nice for Mother's Day because, you know, I have been thinking about my mother with Mother's Day coming up, and I did get out the quilt a couple days ago, and I actually re-washed some of the scraps of the t-shirts that I had because they've been stuffed in a bag for a while, so I just wanted to freshen them up. And yeah, I'm gonna get started on this, and if you like, if you're interested, I can you know, add a little piece to some of my videos and show you what I've been doing. So, all right, I'm going to turn the camera around and we're gonna do 2 things. All right, we're going to do the strip piece next. So I'm working very zoomed in, so I have to stay right here. So let's just say we wanted to do this piece right here. Say you're going to do a huge piece, but we're going to just do this piece right here. So you start by, make sure I'm in frame. You start by laying the first strip down, okay, and then cut it to size. Then the second piece, now you can decide which side you want up. So the second piece you're going to lay like that and then fold it over. Okay, so you're going to lay it down, the second piece, and you can see I have the raw edges together, and I'm going to stitch 1/4 inch across here, 1/4 inch, and then I'm going to fold it over. And I like to use an iron, but you know, if you don't want to use an iron, you don't have to. Okay, and now the next piece, you're just going to keep going with this. So the next piece, you're going to lay it down and then fold it over. So you're going to lay it down, stitch 1/4 inch, and then fold it over. And you're just going to fill up the whole backing cloth and lining, I should say. This is the lining. And these don't have to be the same width. In fact, I like them when they're not the same width. So feel free to use a really skinny piece and just keep doing that. I'm going to show you one more, and this is the weaving one, which I really like a lot. So you cut out your background cloth. This is your lining. Cut that out first to the size that you want, and then lay some strips down. It is definitely easier if they are ironed. And mine happen to be all the same width. I don't usually use all the same width. I just happen to have these strips. So that's what I'm showing you on. So you're going to go under and over and under and over. Okay, then the next row, right? Just like regular weaving, you're going to go over and pick this up and under, and try to keep these close together, and over and under. Okay, and then you're just going to do the whole piece like this. Once you finish weaving everything, before don't try to pick it up, just try to go in there and do a little basting. I like to put a few pins in here to keep it from coming apart, and then do some basting stitches. And let me show you. So here's the one that I did with the weaving. You see they're different widths, and sometimes I use the right side of the cloth and sometimes I use the wrong side. Then I did put a pin in them to just hold them, and then I did do regular basting stitches on this, as I recall. I did this one a long time ago. And then I went in and I quilted wherever I felt it needed to be quilted. So if you look on the back, you can see exactly where I quilted, but I tried to go no more than a finger width apart. And then I just quilted the whole thing. So these are just loose, and I'll just trim these off when I know how big I want this block to be. So here's a really big one that I did with strips, and most of them are pretty small. So I hope that I've inspired you to create a backdrop for something that you can make a quilt or a wall hanging or something out of your loved one's clothing, and out of their clothing that's a little difficult to use. Because if it's just regular cottons, you can stitch them together like you would a regular quilt. It's the t-shirt and maybe some wool that would be a little challenging to use. So I hope that you enjoyed this, and keep moving. Just play, no rules, and remember to be grateful for something today. And I am grateful for you, and I am also very grateful that I had my mother for 59 years. Happy Mother's Day, everyone, and I will see you next Friday. Bye.